My name is Salifu Bah. Very passionate on personal development, especially for young ones. But again, I am deeply honored as well to join or to be the host of such a dynamic team in the area of leadership, entrepreneurship, and of course, business as well. Our topic for the discussion today is Road to Successful Entrepreneurship. We all know that entrepreneurship is one way of developing a house, developing a compound, and of course a country. And studies have shown that startup businesses contribute almost $3 trillion of value in the world economy. And it will interest you to note as well, the same report from Jobe indicated that only 14% of ladies are involved or founders on these startup businesses. But today, we have a lady who is a co-founder. Probably she is one of the 14%. We're hoping to see a larger number maybe in the next report. And again, the same report from Jobe indicated that 9 out of the 10 startup companies basically fails after 2 or 3 years. So today, the people that will join me to discuss on this topic are here to be welcomed. So to begin with, as the saying goes, ladies come first. I'll start with our first panelist, Madam Ceesay. Madam Ceesay is a BSc holder and an MBA holder in the University of Maryland. She's a co-founder and CEO of Ibroso Consulting. She has 19 years of experience in banking, management, and leadership in the USA. She is an adjunct professor in leadership, entrepreneurship, and of course, marketing from the University of Bowie State in Maryland. Previously, she worked as a vice president at M&T Bank in the US, and she was a financial center leader and a vice president in BB&T Bank in Maryland. She is an enthusiast on leadership and marketing and entrepreneurship. Please join me to welcome Madam Ceesay. So our next speaker is a brother, a Gambian as well, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday to you, bro. Wish you many more to come. He's a BSc holder in computer science and environmental studies. He is currently the managing director of Atlas Energy Limited, which is one of the leading OMCs in the Gambia, providing petroleum products in the country. Sometime in 2015, he came back from his studies and worked in the diaspora to lead the retail department of Atlas Gambia. Prior coming, he was working with Monterey Bank in Canada as a reporting analyst. And he's an order Toastmasters member of the Gambian Club. He is an enthusiast on technology and an important member of the Gambia business community with keen interest in corporate social responsibility. Please join me to welcome our own brother again, Mr. Hally Jobe. As I rightly mentioned, welcome, brother. Our discussion for the day today is Road to Successful Entrepreneurship. And numbers and statistics have highlighted earlier that in every 10 businesses that we have, 9 fails. That will lead me to my first question to our Madam Ceesay, that as an entrepreneur, why are startups and businesses failing?
Okay, great. Well, good morning, excuse me, from my end here, and good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you guys for this great forum, for inviting us to really highlight experiences. And as you guys have mentioned earlier, that generally with finance and numbers, it was more regarded in a backroom office work. But as we go along and things come along, we want to come more in the front end and come in more in the consultant end. And when I hear that, that excites me because myself, I'm an undergrad holder of accounting, but I don't like to be called an accountant because when I look at it into the numbers way driven, I like to always be in the front end, kind of like inspiring and bringing people in. So I'm very, very excited. Thank you for having me on this. So, when we look at the numbers with entrepreneurship, and you were saying that 9 out of 10 fail, I like to first put it in a different way of also sometimes considering what failure is. What failure is as a journey as opposed to be the end. I just want to put a pitch pin on that right quick. Then go into before getting into entrepreneurship, right? So we do know most of the folks get into entrepreneurship to solve some kind of problem or maybe looking into a gap that is not being filled in with the current players in the market or technological trends, right? Those are few top three things that people looking into going into entrepreneurship. Now, I will say though, if you consider one of these to be your passion into getting into entrepreneurship, it's a different ways into before launching into the market to go and be ready. Back in the days, years ago, it was people will want to do a business, build the room, build offices, hire folks, then go in and test the products, realizing that there's no demand for it, right? Because you just assume that the people need it. And when in, come to find out later that this is not what we need, then you gotta have to pivot after spending all the money. So what I will say is to kind of like minimize those failure, if failure is referred to as the end of the business, that I'm not going to do anything anymore, is the end of it. If we define failure that way, first of all, understand that there is a market, there is a demand for it. But I also don't want to minimize that demand into just one segment or one area of the globe, because the way market testing will be done somewhere here in the United States may be a little bit different with a place, for instance, in the Gambia where we are from. We can still do that testing though to understand that at least there's a demand by checking with the suppliers who you think will be buying your product. If you're going to be in a B2B, business to business, if you're going to be into business to consumer, talk to your friends, family, and other people who are in the business. Not necessarily what exactly you're doing, because we do know if you go to someone who's going to sell what you're going to look into sell, they may not be open to give you that information. But at least do some little research and understand that people are willing to buy this product or whatever you are looking into do before going in, to avoid failure as an end. Now, failure as a pivot, what I mean by that is if you fail, we say fail early. That could mean just fail very quick and move on to the next phase. Because when it comes to entrepreneurship, really failure, we want to understand, we want to really define and see what it means to us. So that's what I will say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Ceesay. That's a very good introduction to the answers. That will lead me to Mr. Jobe. The same question will go to you. As a Gambian entrepreneur, why do you think the startups, especially Gambian startups and small businesses, are failing?
Let me try and contextualize it and bring it down to the local environment a little bit more. Much like Madam Ceesay has also touched on, I agree with a lot of the things that she has said. But before jumping into that, I'd also like to thank you all for inviting me on this platform. After hearing her introduction, not simply because she's a woman, she has a wealth of experience and 19 years of banking experience. I can't compete with that.
Absolutely.
And she's also a finance and accounting expert as well. I think a lot of what she will say will be able to be relayed across the board here when you guys are all finance experts as well. I think a lot of times, like she said, failure is something that can mean very different things for different people. But in this context, I think what mainly you're referring to is the fact that people will close down businesses. And when I think about Gambia, a lot of times I think about the fact that everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but not necessarily that everybody understands what it means. people like the idea of I own a business, but not necessarily understanding the responsibility that comes with that. There's the fact that you're the last one to always take money out of the company. You have staff to pay every month. And a lot of times, I don't think people are exactly prepared for that journey when they're entering. Maybe because they don't have mentors or they don't actually understand what it takes to run a successful business. Now, I'm glad that a lot of people that are here are finance experts, because I think for any proper business to be run, you need to have very sound finance principles that people need to follow. And oftentimes you see somebody selling a product and you ask them a simple question like, how much does it even cost you to make this thing? And they don't have a clue. So a lot of people really need to sit down, learn the basics of running any business properly before they get into starting a business. And I think that's one of the main things that I found that can be challenging for many individuals when they're starting business in the country. And also, I think the second thing is the fact that many people are not very original about what they're trying to do. So there's one thing I see Salifu on the road. Oh, Salifu is selling shoes, making a lot of money. Therefore, I should start selling shoes as well. I mean, the market is only so large. When you have 100 people doing the exact same thing, there are bound to be many people that are going to fail. For every one successful individual in that business, maybe there are 100 people that are behind that one individual that have already failed. So I'll just say people need to take more time to understand the business that they're getting into. Make sure they understand the sound finance principles that they need to follow and manage the business like a business, not like their own personal bank account. I think that also goes a long way in helping them understand how to run their business properly so that it stays alive for longer than 1, 2, or 3 years.
Thank you very much. That's an other strong point, which is before you start a business, you should understand what business is, not only to see people outside and believing that you have to be part of the game. So that will lead me to the next question, Madam Ceesay. How would you know when someone have a good idea or have a very good business idea? How would one know as an entrepreneur that this idea is really a go-getter in your own point?
Okay, thank you very much. And that will get me a little bit back again into testing that idea, right? When you have an idea that you want to solve, there is such a bias with yourself or an idea you want to pursue. There's a natural tendency bias that you love this idea, it is your own, it has to be great, right? So I will say, number one, don't be married to the idea. You know, put it out there that, hey, this is an idea that came from myself as an individual. Let me put it out and see how it goes and be open to the feedback that you're going to receive outside over there in the market, right? The marketplace can be very brutal, right? It is very brutal, but taking all the necessary precaution and be ready to adapt to those feedback that you're going to receive is very, very helpful in that. And how you do that? Again, with Gambia, it's such a small, it's such a small market that you say, okay, how would I have to probably putting a lot of surveys out there? But back to what I was saying in my previous sentence, in my previous intro again, is look at who's out there, right? And I think when Mr. Jobe spoke, Mr. Bah, you said something about the game, right? Just because everybody else is doing something, you want to be part of the game. It's beyond that, right? You got to be willing to go out there and be uncomfortable to test that idea and see if who you think is going to be those, what we call early adapters of that idea, right? See what traction you're going to get from them and be very, very open to that feedback to see if it is good enough to take it to the next level. Building a successful entrepreneurship may sound like, it's a test that you're doing in the lab, like a scientific process, but I will say most of the work is going to happen there before you come out and put it into the market to become a sustainable model.
Thank you very much. Which means that building a business, you need to build a team. And then building a team, you need to understand a model. So that will lead me to the next question, Mr. Jobe. As a leader, how do you build your team in striving for business growth?
I think that's actually a very difficult thing to solve, especially in Gambia. I mean, a lot of times you come across a lot of entrepreneurs, you'll find that one thing that they will always tell you that it's a very, very difficult environment for you to be able to find professionals that you can work with. Not necessarily that there aren't people that are educated or like people that aren't hardworking, but sometimes some of our little issues more so stem from some of the business practices that you'll find across the board. So you might find somebody in Gambia with 20 years experience, and then you get into working with them and realize that your work ethic does not necessarily align with theirs. And that can be sometimes challenging. But I think more importantly, when you're trying to shoot for business growth, the most important thing is to find like-minded individuals who share the same vision as you. So more importantly than even just the credentials they have on paper, make sure that the individual's values and ethics match what you're looking for. It's very, very important, and make sure as a leader that you also sell them on what you're trying to do. Because a lot of times work for a lot of people ends up being just a question of how many hours are you spending in the office. We need to shift from that and start focusing more about results and what we're delivering in terms of a business. And that's where I think people need to be extremely creative about how they look for talent, and also whether that talent matches with apologies for that. I'm not quite sure why that happened. No, I was just saying that it's more so just about individuals making sure that they align their values, their principles, and also the goal. I think a lot of time needs to be spent on just making sure that everybody within any organization that you're in is aligned with you in terms of the direction that you want to head in. Countless times you will find that a business lacks direction. And if that's the case, a lot of the employees within that business wouldn't have any clue what their real objectives are.
That's a great answer, Mr. Jobe. In an environment where we believe people have talent, the only way to work with them is to motivate them. The only way to work with them, like you rightly mentioned, is having the good team. Just yesterday, I was listening to Bill Gates, where he indicates that at the age of 15, he had a team of 3 working with him on a payroll system at the age of 15. How many people, especially Gambian at the age of 15, will think basically to develop something of that magnitude? Thank you very much for that great insight. Madam Ceesay, we all know entrepreneurship, as indicated on the statistics, they contribute a greater part in the world economy. In your own experience as well, what do you think are the merits of having youth with entrepreneurship mindset? The merits of having youths with an entrepreneurship mindset in national development or even global development?
Absolutely. That's such a great one. And I will tag along to what you mentioned, Bill Gates at the age of 15, right?
Yep.
He is Microsoft now. I mean, we all know now what Microsoft has revolutionized, but not just in the United States, but the entire world. So I think your 15-year-old with Bill Gates has kind of like just talked about that, right? A mindset. Entrepreneurship as a mindset, right? So, because sometimes we look at entrepreneurship just more of an enterprise, but you're having the mindset at any given age is able to give our youths at any given age that they can tackle any problem that they are faced with. So having that mindset has to really come from all hands on deck, all sectors, from our education sector, from our household parental aspect, and the communities that we do to build that mindset. Because most of the time, if we look at it, that most of us that grew up with parents being entrepreneurs, chances kind of follow into that, right? My dad was an entrepreneur, and most people in our family are entrepreneurs. So the mindset aspect of things, right? Not just necessarily that it's just that big entrepreneur, it's just that big enterprise that is owned, because sometimes when it's so big, of looking at Microsoft as I don't know how many billion of a asset or more, it may be very, very hard from that aspect to look at it that way. But if you look at it from a problem-solving mindset that you can tackle anything, then it becomes in phases at any given level. When they're in primary school, or I think we call it lower basic school in the Gambia,
absolutely,
they can do projects, anything that they give them, they can say, here is $5. How can you guys use this $5 to become $50 through that mindset building? Then we take that to our middle school, high school, of course, in college. Here in the university where I lecture at, that's what we're doing, trying to do that mindset campus-wide from our freshman student all the way till they graduate. When they have that mindset, whether it's in the sciences, whether it's in the arts, whether it's business, whatever it is, they will go out there, be able to tackle complex solutions. And if you look at this COVID, none of us sign up for this COVID, but COVID signed all of us up. So now having an entrepreneurial mindset is allowing this generation to help us get through this. So that's what the mindset of youth will do, and be able to multiply more than our generation didn't do. And to say our generation, I know most of you guys say I'm a generation ahead of you guys. So I'm part of the generation X. So I don't want you to be like, no, we're not that same age with you. Yeah, I'm X. So, but I'll talk about the millennial and the generation Z will be able to multiply more than we were not able to do.
Absolutely, that's very good. That's very good. I think we have something similar to that in the Gambia. The YEP project is helping on that, and we have other development partners who support in trying to make sure that the mindset basically is nurtured in a way, or furnished in a way, that people will start thinking entrepreneurship, because it basically rules the world. Thank you very much for that, Madam Ceesay. My next question will go to you, Mr. Jobe. Businesses are inherently comes with successes and failures. As an entrepreneur, how should you react to failure?
I think that's a very interesting question, and it just depends on how one wants to approach it. I heard earlier, Madam Ceesay was also asking the same question about how one defines failure. I think that's something that is very important. I personally don't like to think of failure when it comes to entrepreneurship, because most individuals that you come across that consider themselves entrepreneurs would have told you about 4 or 5 different businesses that they've tried, that they decided it wasn't working, I need to move on to the next idea. And I think that that's the most fundamental thing. It's only a failure if you refuse to learn from it. And it's important as an entrepreneur for you to go through some of those tough times to be able to recalibrate yourself. And in a lot of cases, recalibrate your business, so that you can just figure out that, you know what, this is just a learning experience. How do I take what I've learned from this and apply it to either a different business or pivot the existing business that I'm in to ensure that it works better? So I don't like to think of it as failure, and I think that's one thing that helps. I haven't had as many issues with regards to that, but just come to think of recently, we've had to close down a business. It wasn't working out. Now, did I look at it as a failure? No. We just decided to change the business model. So a lot of people on the outside, they don't even see it as a failure, because that business till today is still operating, but it's not operating under the same business model that existed. But I think the thing that entrepreneurs just need to remember is, look, you can try, if it doesn't work, move on to the next idea. Work smart. Do not be attached to an idea so much that when you realize it's not working, you refuse to let go. Because you have to just ensure that you're putting your energy into the right ideas so that they can really grow into something much bigger.
That's great one, not to be attached to any business idea. If you want to fail, then be attached. Any mistake, then there is no room for you to change. So I think the key word there would be not to be attached to any business idea, but look for the success factor. Thank you very much, Mr. Jobe. Madam Ceesay, it is widely, as a wording which is said, cash is king in our business environment. Without cash, business fails. How are businesses, both large and small, having difficulties to access finance?
That is really, I would say, one thing that is a global challenge, right? Mr. Jobe is shaking his head. It's a global challenge, especially when it even comes to minorities and startups, right? Because if you look at entrepreneurship, and I think here in the United States, we're kind of like even getting more to smell the coffee. And what I'll break down a little bit, because first of all, I was in banking for about 17 years. And if you look at the way banking business models are designed, it's risk averse. I mean, pretty much, because when you go into bank to access finance and you put all the business plans together, it's on a projection, right? It's on a projection. You will put it all, but it's on a projection. And when I mean a projection, a 5 years saying, hey, year one, this is what we're gonna make, year one, this is what we're gonna make. And like I said, banks are risk averse. So it becomes very, very hard. I did small business lending to both of the organizations that I worked at. I was excited that we did as many, but I will say that also the one we didn't do are more. So it lead me into what I do right now from my consulting standpoint, to be able to support folks to kind of understand that by the time you come to a financial institution, if it's a financial institution or a bank is the one who's going to, you're going to come to saying that you don't have your business plan, you don't have all of that, chances are you're going to get declined. So how do we minimize that, right? How do we minimize our ability to not being able to get declined? I will say, yes, you will do your projections, but let not somebody else do that for you. Make sure you understand how did you get those numbers to say that you're going to make X, Y, Z revenue in year one, year two. Make sure you understand that very, very well. I think we talked about the backbone of finance. Make sure you also understand the kind of business you are going into. Most of the time, people want a bank to give them a loan or anybody to give them a loan just because they don't understand, and the passion, lack thereof, is not there. So you can't explain why you're going into business, and the bank is just not going to throw money at you. So that's one of the ways that it will be challenging to raise money. Now, fortunately, now there are untraditional ways that venture capitalists are now coming together, or some angel investors, if they have a passion for a certain type of business sector, to put therein. But I will say also, if you are going to those as well, make sure that, again, also you have a viable business model. And when we say a viable business model, and like Mr. Jobe alluded to earlier, you may not be too attached to it, but going there showing that so far, to the best of my ability, this is what I've done, the research, this is the phase that I am in. And I am open as I get more feedback that I can pivot. I think like he mentioned that they have a business that they have to, switch the model. So have all that open mind in there to the people that you are pitching to, that they're going to be able to support you for that access to finance. But if somebody's giving you money to say that you're going to do this business, all they're thinking about is, how am I going to get paid? And you have to be able to explain that to them very, very clearly, how you're going to be able to get them paid, because no one want to invest in you and lose.
Nobody want to invest to you and lose.
Yes.
Which means that your financial projections needs to be authenticated. And in authenticating that, you need finance professionals to do that for you. Yes. Mr. Jobe, as an MD, how do you think your collaboration with finance professionals or even accountants assist in obtaining your business objectives?
I think this again is one of those very crucial questions that I don't think a lot of people value enough. You cannot run a business without proper finance people. And this is something that I cannot stress enough. I mean, the second in command within our company right now is obviously our finance director. She's actually the only other individual who reports directly to the board. And the level of reliance that I have on her is unparalleled. I mean, it comes down to everything with regard to how you're managing the money that's coming in versus how the money is going out. And also, more importantly, this is touching on a little bit about what Madam Ceesay was talking about with regards to finding finances. If you are not structured properly as a business, no serious investor will ever even think about putting a cent into what it is that you're doing. Having finance individuals and accounting people within your company ensure that your business will be structured in a better way. You'll be surprised how many businesses in Gambia exist without having proper accountants or finance people behind them. And these are businesses sometimes that are very big, bringing in a lot of money, But when you go back to try and look at their books, they're practically non-existent. They have very rudimentary ways of tracking money that comes in and goes out. But in the world that we live in today, you need to make sure that you standardize your finance processes and accounting principles across the board so that that universal language that is used to value or assess any individual is followed through. So, I mean, they're the most important department, I think, in any business that exists. And that's why I think it's a good thing that many of you here are already in that field as well and are trying to understand what it's all about. Because sometimes you have finance people that are so focused on the numbers that they forget the business.
Absolutely.
And that can be a big problem.
Absolutely.
The relationship is a very interesting one, but it needs to be the strongest within any organization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jobe. You've mentioned very critical points that managing key stakeholders is important, but finance is very instrumental to ensure the success of a business because it gives you the insight and how you even relate with key stakeholders. Thank you very much. Madam Ceesay, his point will lead me to another interesting point, which is managing stakeholders. Businesses are known to have customers, suppliers, and finance providers. How could you tell us as an entrepreneur to manage or to ensure there is a win-win situation between the stakeholders and the business?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we consult on here at Broso Consulting, having to make sure that everyone within that ecosystem is going to be a win-winner, like you said, from the business standpoint, from the customer standpoint, and also the community which you exist in, and even government as well. I think that becomes from a mission-driven purpose, right? Mm-hmm. So as a company, you have to have a mission, right? And the vision. And also having this mission also is just not necessarily something that you just post on the wall and everybody just passes it for the sake of a decoration, right? I think Mr. Jobe also mentioned this earlier, making sure that people that you hire have that alignment of that purpose, right? There's one thing we always say from a hiring standpoint, I'm starting with the internal first, then I will take it out of the stakeholders that are outside of the organization. You can hire, you can teach skill, but you cannot teach will, right? So I'll say it again. You can teach skill, but you can't teach will. So if somebody just want to be hired just because they show up for 9 to 5, it's going to be the longest 9 to 5, right? And I'll just give an example. Some years ago, date myself when I just came to the United States, right? 1999, just have to get a job, I was a student and I also have to get a job, right? Every hour looks like 10 hours. I was looking at the clock all the time, right? Fast forward to now that I do what I love, time goes so fast. I'm like, where did the time go? So yes, mission alignment, purpose driven with people who are within the organization. And those organizations are people who works for us, then becomes our raving fans, right? To be able to serve the customers into that same mission driven that we have that will go there. But also to make sure your customers win, you have to offer value, right? When people buy something, they have to be able to see the value in it, so they're going to be able to come back into that organization and have that repeated customers that they will come in. The environment that you operate in, right? You can't say you are a good organization when you pollute the environment of the people that live in there. And pollution is real. Even in the Gambia, we see it over there, right? I see stuff in the beach side where you see these fishes been thrown all over, things like that. So I would say that's all stakeholders are not winning. So again, for everyone to win, we have to align our vision and mission with employees buying into it. Employees know that that's what they're there for, but also in the communities that we walk in, because those are the people we also employ and they are the people who buy us. If we have all these aligning, and of course your supply chain, because you also have to make sure people you buy from also are aligning with the mission of your organization, not just necessarily that I'm buying from the cheapest person. Things are changing. And like I mentioned, generation-wise, the generation Y and the generation Z, they are looking more for purpose-driven, and they are They are the internet generation. They're doing their research and see who you're doing business with. So if you want to be sustainable and stay long-term, they're going to be in alignment with everyone within that ecosystem.
Thank you very much. I think that, again, the key words are corporate alignment or mission alignment. And what is your context again as well? That is, you can teach the skill but cannot teach the will, right?
Yes.
That's great. That will lead me to the next question, Mr. Mas, Mr. Hally Mas. When hiring as a leader, what do you look for in an employee?
I personally always look for the things that you cannot see on paper. I think hiring is something that's very, very personal for me, and I make sure that at the level of the organization, that practically 100% of the people that we bring into our head office are people that I make sure I sit down. That's not to say you're going to hire the best individual, but it's more just to get a feel of the individual that we're about to get into the organization, and really to see if we align in terms of our values and what we're trying to achieve. Now, those meetings I consider even more important than the resume. And the reason I say that is because nowadays, every resume looks the same. And oftentimes when I have friends or family that are looking for work, I always tell them, you need to try your absolute best to stand out. Because if you're using the traditional methods of trying to look for work as well, just simply submitting a resume, more than likely is not going to get you a job. And the reason is when you're on the side of an organization, you usually have 1,000+ CVs or resumes that are sitting in front of you. And for the most part, they all look the same. For the most part, they will all have the same basic skill set. So for me, like I said, having that in-person sit down with people is something that always stands out for me. The second thing that I always ensure is that whenever we're hiring new people in, you will always go through a minimum of 2 interviews. And our interviews are always panel interviews, because I might miss out on something, but a colleague might pick up on it. So that's also something that we're always very mindful of, because how that individual presents in front of my colleagues is very important, because then we can have synergy when they join the team, that, you know what, this is somebody who will be able to fit into our corporate culture very well, and we'll be able to achieve the business goals that we want together. So I just try to figure out somebody who has obviously the foundation, the fundamentals already, but also somebody who will fit into my team and be able to deliver the things that I want in the way that the organization wants as well.
Definitely, that's superb. Always building a team is difficult, but having the right team is a success as well. Madam Ceesay, one entrepreneur, a South African entrepreneur called Vusi, he says, before establishing even a business idea, think about the customers first. Think about what should be your marketing strategy to reaching these customers. So as an entrepreneur, why do you think leaders or entrepreneurs should understand the idea of marketing?
Okay. I would say sometimes marketing could be a little bit, sometimes people, when they look at marketing, they think it just is a brochure. It is, we are the best people in the market, you know, come to us and things like that. Marketing also is another principle from the beginning, you know, a mission of the organization, right? Again, back into the employees, all the people within the organization buying into the mission. In my previous answer, I mentioned raving fans. That raving fans is right there, part of the marketing, right? The tagline, because when they're buying into it, they understand this. They're never gonna have to work a day in your life. I think there's a gentleman called Zig Ziglar. He's older now. I don't know if you're familiar with motivational speaker that I really, really follow a lot, and I get inspired by a lot of the quotes that he shared, right? If people are inspired with what they do, they never have to work a day in their life. And I will get back to myself as a human being, as an individual. I sometimes may look like I work 24/7, but I also feel like I don't work, right? Whether it's on my LinkedIn page, whether it's in my Facebook, or whether it's in my, Instagram, which I try to be a little cool with with this younger generation, right? I'm still doing what I'm doing, but I'm my own marketing of myself in how I carry and present myself. Because I look at myself the way, do I want to do business with me? Right? And that's the same thing the organization have to be, and that's the same the employees have to be. When people come in, or that ideal customers that you think of, are they going to want to do business with you? So that representation. Now, I can't say exactly what that is for everyone. That now depends on every organization, how you want that to be, right? When you all decide that and define that and cook that meal. Because when I teach, I explain to students, business model is like cooking a food. You get all the ingredients, do all the process. If it becomes a damada or a benachin, whatever you want that to come out to be, it better be like that. And it better be that's how you want it to come and feel across. And shop your own people, especially leaders, right? Shop your people. When I used to be, when I was a manager back then in the bank, some days I will shop my people by surprise. I will call them, and said, see how they answer the phone. Are they following those rules? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, Jainaba, I didn't know that was you. I said, does it matter? Are you doing it for me? Or is it for what we say the customer? So you gotta create what you guys want that to look like, inspect it and expect what you inspect, and inspect what you expect. So the customers will not be disappointed. But at the end, outside of it, always be surveying also your customers and see if that's the expectation that you guys set, if that's been met. If not, you adjust. If you're doing it, keep doing it and even better.
Customer satisfaction is key for the business success. Thank you very much, Madam Ceesay. Mr. Jobe, a recent ACCA studies, again, I always want to come up with statistics, indicated that diversity and inclusion create success, create innovation, and of course, happiness, which is vis-a-vis motivation. As a leader, again, what are the benefits of establishing diversity and inclusion in a corporate culture?
I believe this is something that's always a bit challenging, especially when you look at the Gambian context, because of the fact that there are not a lot of policies or mechanisms in place that ensure workplaces are diverse. And what that ends up doing is leaving a lot of people behind. I think companies should always reflect society, and our society is very diverse. Now, you go out, for example, you will find that there are probably more women in Gambia, for example, than there are men. Mm-hmm. But funny enough, when you get into the workplace, it's often not the case. And that's why I found it very funny when Madam Ceesay asked that question at the very start, where are all of the women on this call? Find that oftentimes when you work into a workplace, you will find that that's an issue that has not yet quite been resolved in this country. A lot of times when you look at it, it's more so about creating cohesion within the work environment, but also businesses exist to take care of communities and societies. And if there are individuals left behind, we'll find that business might be developing, but not necessarily adding value to the society that it exists within. So we are an organization that's very committed to having diversity when it comes to gender parity, or when it comes to even just hiring people that might have certain disabilities or things that might make it more difficult for them to find work. As long as the individual is qualified, we try to make sure that the hiring process is as transparent and as easy as possible for people to be able to come in and deliver to the best of their ability. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at a little bit more within our context. And I think also at the level of government, certain things need to be done to discourage very bad hiring processes that I've seen in this country, especially. You'll be surprised to find out, for example, that people will not hire young women in this country sometimes, and they will blatantly tell you because, oh, you know what, you will hire them and they'll just get pregnant and wouldn't come back to work. And you'll be surprised to hear these things from people that are very well educated, people that have been very exposed, and that are in very high leadership positions. And you look at them like, do you seriously believe that? But more and more, like I said, the only way we can change it by starting within the areas that we control. And within our organization, being one of the biggest companies in the Gambia, we make sure that whenever we're hiring, that these things don't come into play at all. We just ensure that everybody has a fair opportunity and that they can come in and give it their all and give it their best. And I think it goes a long way, especially when you let people that are coming from marginalized groups. I find that they tend to perform even far better than those who just have expected it their whole life. We've recently hired maybe about 3 or 4 women engineers, and I think that engineers are even in shorter demand when it comes to women than you're talking about accounting personnel. But the job that they're doing, I mean, it's just changing the mindsets of individuals across the organization. From people having to think now that, oh, we'll do the to now being like, oh, okay, so maybe, you know what, we've just been thinking about this the wrong way. I think we have a lot of room to grow. I think slowly that these things are changing, and I'm always glad to see women and other marginalized groups getting into areas not traditionally seem to be that women are naturally in. I mean, if you go into a marketing department, you don't ever have this issue of gender parity or like I said, marginalized groups. But then when you go into other positions, it's the complete opposite. You go into organizations sometimes with 200 people and find out that they have 20 women in the whole organization. It doesn't make sense. It's something that we need to work a lot towards to try and improve it. But as long as the issue is identified, we can go a long way in trying to resolve it.
Very true. All key stakeholders, government, individuals, and institutions, all of them have a responsibility to ensure there is inclusion, there is diversity. Like you might rightly mentioned, in many cases, the marginalized people will perform better. And, you know, a lot of people will attest to that fact that it exists. That will lead me to the next question, Madam Ceesay. Government needs to change. Myself, I need to change, but everybody needs to change. What do you think our government or governments should do to ensure there is more local participation in business development in the country? I know you're in the US, but from your experience.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, when it comes to government, it could be very interesting when you're talking about government and without, you know, being looking more in the political. But I would say just set the political aspect aside. We need government. We cannot function without government. And government needs a tax base for people to pay taxes. However, in order for people to be able to pay taxes, they have to be gainfully employed, right? Not just underemployed, but gainfully employed. So for government to be able to have that tax base that they can collect income taxes and sale taxes and other way, there are means of way that they can support, especially local participants. We do know, I think most recently, I was watching a video from I think the director of the African Development Bank. They were talking about how agriculture, you know, they were talking about how Africa, you know, shouldn't have to import food because we have all it takes. That's one aspect, right, of that. But, you know, tourism and so many other things, we need incentivize that government can give businesses to encourage that. Because normally the little research that I've done, I do see that when it comes to taxes, that organizations pay could be very, very high to the government. And if those taxes become very, very high, that could be very, very hard for this government for this organization to be able to employ, to create more jobs and things like that. So I'll say, first of all, to revisit and look at the tax structure, you know, things like corporate tax structure. I don't know what the exact number is, but kind of look at some of those things for government. For individuals to do that so they can participate in getting into those sectors. And another thing is look at the other areas that are Because if you look at Gambia, for instance, it looked like when you pass really the greater Banjul area, it's kind of a lot of hard things that are happening past those areas to go into all other sectors, all the regions. So look at the regions that are kind of underdeveloped, create another incentive that will bring in people to come into, to invest in those areas. So, the level field, the playing field can be level, and also avoid a lot of what we call urbanization, people coming all the way down to try to get jobs in the little, concentrated area. So to say local participation, right? There's another way also, they used to say that, when to look at to put a high taxes on importation of goods. With these days, I am not sure if that's kind of like those right ways. I remember back in my high school economics, when you say to protect infant industries, I'll date myself, 1998 is when I finished advanced level, but when we talk about economics, that's how, saying protect infant industries, one of those ways to levy a very, very high taxes in importation. For today, I will say that's kind of like that's very, very, how do I say, that's such a natural barrier you put in. I would rather go the way the artificial barrier, support our local folks that we get so good that no one wants something that comes from outside. No one will want to want something from China, from the US, because the Gambia, we get it so good. If you look at something like moringa right now, I'm utilizing moringa. If you look at things that I use here is moringa, shea butter is what I put on my natural hair. So all these things, let's incentivize these industries and help these local folks that they could produce this at a large scale and give consumption locally and also import it abroad. Export it abroad, sorry.
I think the key word is value addition.
Yes.
Value addition. We need to work on adding value on what we create. A recent great debate hosted by Africa Finance Corporation indicated that I was surprised when I was watching that they indicated Africa produce, or 2 or 3 countries in Africa produce more than 50% of the world cocoa. And produce it, but we consume less than 10%. So which means, where is that value addition is coming from? So definitely you made a great point, and I think it's a point that we have to take along, which is we have to start thinking of, as a government, as individual, as corporations, that how do we enhance value on our local produce. A very great point, Madam Ceesay.
And just to add to what you said, we not only just consume that less than 10%, but even the returns don't come here.
Absolutely.
Which is even the hardest thing, right? And I think Ivory Coast, Ghana, the cocoa production is very high in there.
Absolutely.
Right? But when you look at the returns, it's not well aligned and well balanced when it comes back to the continent.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, viewers and participants. To remind you, we are today hosting the Road to Successful Entrepreneurship, organized by the IG Business and Finance through its arm of Gambia Finance Leadership Forum. Today I am joined by our able speakers or panelists, Mr. Hally Jobe and Madam Jainaba Ceesay. Thank you very much. And that leads me to the next question, Mr. Hally. As a leader again, what are some of the mistakes you wish you could have avoided? It sounds personal, but a lot of people can learn from that. Thank you.
The mistakes are, right? But like I said, it's always important to figure out how to improve on those things and just learn from them. Funny enough, one of the things for me that I'm not sure it's exactly a mistake, but as you mentioned when we started this call, I came back to Gambia in 2015. And when I was choosing to come back, I was working for the first bank in Canada in a department, business intelligence department. And it was a very good, well-paid job. In fact, very few people were in that department. So we're one of the best paid departments within the bank. And one of the things that I always wish once I got to Gambia was that I should have returned to the continent sooner. And the reason I say that is because and this is my personal experience, but when I found myself abroad, yes, I was developing myself Professionally, I was stacking up some money in the bank. Everything was great for me, but there was always something that felt like it was missing. And a lot of times when I think about that, it's more so about impact. When I decided to come back here, I decided to take a salary that's less than 10% of what I was making when I was in Canada. But the minute I started working, it stopped being about the salary and became more about the impact that the business had. And a lot of things that I would say were mistakes were when you start shifting away from why you're doing what it is that you're doing and start focusing too much on the money. There are a lot of times where if you look back at the situation, you would have been just like, you know what, maybe I should have prioritized the customer first rather than maybe the money that I would lose. And I've learned a lot from certain experiences that now I'm willing to even throw money away to retain a customer before trying to make the money and letting that customer go. Because businesses, like we said earlier, exist primarily to serve our customers. And if they're not taken care of first, your business can collapse overnight and you'll start wondering what went wrong. Like I told you earlier as well, we've had businesses that we've had to close down. Some of those can be the most painful experiences because you, as an entrepreneur, there's some pride that comes out of creating jobs for people. And when you have to let people go because of things that maybe could have been within your control, that can sometimes be one of the most painful things to have to go through as an entrepreneur. And we haven't only had to close down 1 or 2 businesses. It's been at least 3 or 4 that I can think of. But that's always, it's not necessarily a mistake, but a lived experience that can be very painful that I think most entrepreneurs will have to go through. But it's something that you never really get over or learn how to deal with. Anytime you have to close a business and let people go, it can be very difficult.
Absolutely.
My journey is still going. I'm still very young. I'm still making mistakes every day. And I'm learning from them and pivoting and just applying it to whatever new experience comes my way.
Thank you very much. But like you mentioned, pivoting your problems, having a great team around you will always come up with solution for you. And we wish you to be more successful and to be continue to successful in business as well. Thank you for that insight. I think we are coming to the tail end of the main session. Like highlighted before, that we have a question and answer session where we'll be expecting participants to send in their questions. I'm seeing some questions being sent by the participants on the tab or on the chat box. But before going on to question and answers from the participants, I would like these final words to be given by, how to call it, the panelist on my question and answer session, which is Madam Ceesay again. If you had one piece of advice to someone just starting or about to start a business, what would it be?
Sure. He said one piece, but he's going to pass one piece. One thing I would say is, if you want to start a business, you are not the boss. Just understand that. You want to start a business, I think Mr. Jobe again said this earlier, because you want to own a business for the sake of I'm some business, you know, definitely business or sort of saying, you know, that's not what it is, right? You are not the boss. You gotta be willing to go there, to be uncomfortable and see what the people want, if what you want to provide, if that's what they want. I think also Mr. Jobe said this again, that you are not going to be the first person to be paid. And my accountants in the room hold me accountable to this. I think I've told this to the students. If you look at your income and expense statement or the profit and loss statement, you find wages in there, right? Right? Isn't that where the wages are? Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
But where do you find the owner's equity, right? It's into the balance sheet, right? So, and there's a reason for that, right? So you are not the boss. When you do all it takes to do, you're gonna get rewarded from the retained earnings out there. But that income and expenses, you have to be willing to see those minuses go and be like, oh, salary, there's a loss this time. I'm gonna be willing to wait. But yes, be flexible. You cannot be rigid. when you're looking to do entrepreneurship. Be ready to fail and fail early. And what we mean by fail, it doesn't mean that this is the end of the journey, but you're just going to be willing to fail and fail early. I tell my entrepreneurship students, we just finished our midterms, right? Halfway through the journey. They building ventures. Are we pivoting or are we persevering? And 80% of them are pivoting and adding based on the research that they're doing, the talking that they're doing. When they came along, they thought this was the best thing ever. But having that flexibility, willing to pivot, you are not the boss. You are the person who is, when I've seen successful entrepreneurs are going to their establishment, they're the first to acknowledge you. You know, they are the first to be like, have you attended to this person? These people have been around here. But if you're going to be the entrepreneur that no one ever sees, they all the time at the back, they are not there, they don't know what's going on to the business, that's just a matter of time. So I would say flexibility, be a people person, empathy, you know, knowing that you're going to do this for the greater good of the people. If the people that come to work for you are not happy, or the people who are also you're going to serve are not satisfied with your product, it's just going to be a matter of time for you.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Ceesay. It's definitely indeed an interesting discussion to have such a dynamic panelist today. Mr. Jobe, I will send the same question to you. Young Salifu there on the street want to start a business. What would be your advice today?
It's funny that you asked this question because I still feel like I'm a young person myself. Maybe today I'm starting to slowly cross over, being that I'm turning 30 today, but still consider myself very young. And also, you've made this very difficult because you have me going after Madam Ceesay every time. And every time I'm hearing her talk, I'm like, that sounds much better than what I was even thinking about. And it makes it so much more difficult to speak after her. But I think a lot of people just need to understand that nobody owes you anything. I've met a lot of Gambian entrepreneurs that will come up and be like, guiding my support. And the first thing I always tell people, when you're getting into business, it's not about people supporting you. Yes, you need people support to succeed. But I think whatever it is that you're selling, you need to make sure that whoever you're going out to as customers, that you convince them that whatever it is that you're selling is good for them, that it's better for them. You need to go out there with the mindset that nobody owes me 1 cent. I need to go out there and struggle for every butut that I make. And that's something that I always try to tell a lot of young people, because I feel like sometimes our generation can be a little bit entitled. I can say this because I'm part of the generation, and sometimes I even feel the same way. But I feel like we can be very entitled in terms of, we feel that somebody needs to give us money to start our business. We feel that people need to come and support us. It shouldn't be more so about what people should give us, but what are we giving to people? And as long as we start approaching it from that perspective, I think our businesses will succeed a lot more. It's not going to be easy, but it's just about constantly growing and ensuring that you have the best product out there. Like Madam Ceesay had said earlier, it's not about stopping people from coming in to compete with you. We're in a globalized economy now. So even when there's a product coming from China or the US, you need to make sure that that's your competition as well. Even though you're in Gambia, you need to make sure whatever it is that you're making can rival whatever possible competition that it has. And you need to just have your mindset open. The world is open to us, and those markets are equally open to us. How are you able to exploit that? How are you able to, as a young individual today, leverage on the fact that social media now makes it very easy for you to get your products out there? You can start a business very small, and that's also something that I talk to a lot of people about. They'll tell me, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I can't get money. Yes, it's true. It's going to be very difficult for you to get access to finance. But if you're young and you have an idea, start small. If you want to open a shop that's selling 1,000 bags of rice every month, maybe you have enough money to buy 1 bag of rice. Sell that, use the profit, reinvest it in your business, and grow it slowly. There's nothing wrong with it. If money comes along the way, use that to help your business grow even further. But don't shy away from starting your business small. There's nothing wrong with that. And I always tell people this. Finance is always going to be an issue. Even in more developed countries like ours, it's a problem. where we are now, just rely on the 3 Fs, like they always say. The full friends and family will help you start up your business first. Like the little that you have, and just start. A lot of people will plan for the next 5 years and never start their business. But the ones that are always successful are just the ones that just go ahead and just do it. I'm just going to close with that and then have it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Organic growth is critical in business development. You can look for external sources, but it is always cheaper to have organic growth. Thank you very much, Mr. Jobe. I think now we come to the tail end of the main question and answer sessions. Now we have some questions popping up from the chat box. We can just go straight to those ones. I think the first question is coming from Ismaila Cole, who is logging in all the way, I believe, from Istanbul in Turkey, and which means that Gambians are all over the world. We're having today in the US and some in all parts of the world, in Istanbul and all that. So his question indicates, Madam Ceesay, you talked about getting feedback, but how do you protect your ideas while you are at the testing stage? Because in the Gambian context, when you talk about your business ideas, someone just takes it, the ideas, and do it before you are ready. So it's more of protecting your business ideas. Here comes the business plans that you draw and send it to people for funding and all that. But how do you protect your business ideas as far as you are a young entrepreneur who is aspiring or who has an idea that you want to implement? What is your take on that, madam?
That's such a great question. And what's the gentleman's name again?
Ismaila Cole. By the way, he's my in-law. Huh?
All right, our in-law, Mr. Cole. Thank you. That's such a great question. And I want you to understand this is not only a problem even in the Gambia, this is a problem everywhere. I'm going to start a little here, US, then I'll bring it to the Gambia. Because even here in the United States, you know, we have the patent office that helps you when you're doing your business, but it's not forced to invent, it's forced to file. So yes. Now, what you're going to have to know is this is where you're going to have to be a little bit flexible and understand that even someone trying to copy your idea, if it's not their authentic thing, something they wanted to do, it's not going to be successful. And I've seen this in the Gambia a lot as a challenge because someone mentioned, we did a program for diaspora mentorship a couple of years ago. And when it comes to even the testing, people are very, very try to shy away from that people is going to take their idea. But I would also say that the risk of going out there to test it is much more in the long run rewarding than just going there without testing it and do it, then it doesn't work. So we have to really take that failure option out and say that if I share it, people are going to know it and they're going to go ahead. It's very, very hard, but we have to go there and test that organic the way. If people want to try it, like I said, growing up in the Gambia, one person will be selling ebe today, another person will sell it tomorrow. Before you know, 10 people selling ebe, but hey, the one who makes the best one end up being the one that stays, right? So have a belief in that and knowing that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to have to do different stages. If this doesn't work, it's fine. If someone steals the idea, you keep your authentic self and do that testing and go there. I'm telling you, when you believe in it and do it right, you're going to be in the long haul. And this is the way entrepreneurship become looking at it as a long run, long-term relationship that you're creating than just, 1 year or 2. But it's a tough one and it's a nightmare for everybody. I just want to let you know that you are not alone in that. But just go out there and also know who are the people who you're going to test it with as well. Let it be people who have probably kind of have also some kind of, I think someone mentioned mentorship earlier. Look at people who will be the first people you will talk to as they're not going to steal your idea. Then let them direct you to people who you can go to from a mentorship standpoint.
Thank you very much. It's important you protect your idea, but again, do the way you want to do it and try to make sure that you do the best thing. Always you'll have the results. That's a very good one. And that leads me to the next question. Mr. Jobe, you are free to add on to anything if you want to during the question and answer session, if you have any idea or any other word that you want to add. The next question again goes to Madam Jainaba. It indicates a lot of questions asking about ladies, but it's still coming. You have been a banker and got used to full-time and guaranteed paycheck. How were you able to leave salary work to pursue business?
Oh, that's a good one, and I get that all the time. Yes, it to especially here, you get paid like twice a month. So, for you to see that paycheck stop coming in and able to take a venture is very, very risky. Now, then that's where going to do your business research, making sure that is a viable model. So I would say how my business passion came through. Like I was saying, most of the time when businesses that I serve coming, they get declined for loans because they don't have the financial acting together. But I'm in financial acting together is having their, because they're busy as a self-employed people, right? They try to be that one man that do it all, right? You want to be that one man you run. So I call it the self-employed mentality, right? So leading to my business, I try to talk to businesses as more of being an enterprise. It wouldn't be maybe still small, but run it like an enterprise. Have a good accountant, have a good banker, let them help you put those things together so that will become a business. So from that standpoint, I've already seen that there's a big need for what I do already, right? Having those skill sets. So I already have a few people that I know I could start business with. But I'll also say that also I have a very, very supportive partner. My husband is supportive to me as well. So I couldn't have done it by myself. So I have that support there as well. Because it's very risky when you have a house that you have to pay for, you have children, and just not have a paycheck. Yeah. So a plan got to be in place in case, something doesn't come, because you just don't get, sometimes you get paid every 3 months. Sometimes you get paid every 6 weeks. So you have to be able to have that plan in knowing that when you get paid, you take care of what needs to get taken care of as well.
Thank you very, very much, Madam. That's well said again, and I think you've hit the nail at the right point. Huh? That's how it is normally said in the Gambia. The next question basically goes to Mr. Jobe. I know based on your CV, you are a technology enthusiast. And this question is coming from Hadija to Sow, all the way from the UK. She said, the question reads, my knowledge, PayPal is not available in the Gambia, yet and most people do not have access to online banking. If someone is to think of doing an online business, the underlying word, what most of their payments are expected to come from online payments. What is your advice on dealing with that? Basically, I think the idea is if you want to create an online payment mechanism or an online business, what mechanism should you do? I don't know you get the question right.
I get the problem and question very, very well. And so like you said, I studied technology, but somehow found myself in business. It's not surprising. But a few years ago, had you asked me where I would have been today, I would have expected that I would have been working somewhere in Silicon Valley. To just answer Khadija's question, this is something that I think everybody has recognized is a problem in the Gambia. Almost any technology individual that you talk to, or anybody who has an online marketplace, you'll realize that payment platforms are a huge problem. And slowly there are businesses that are coming up that are trying to address this problem. I can think of off the top of my head, there's a company in Nigeria even called Flutterwave, but a lot of them are interfacing with Visa and MasterCard. And a lot of times, not just do you have a problem of payment, but you will find that a lot of online businesses are relying on a lot of customers that live outside of Gambia. The second issue you start facing when you're here is that shipping costs is extremely expensive. If you ever try to ship a product out of Gambia to the outside world, you realize that this is a huge barrier. I don't know if I have an answer to your question exactly, but one thing I would say is that most people that are willing to buy products online already have a Visa or a MasterCard. So just figure out how you can set up on your own platform that can access Visa or MasterCard. It more than likely wouldn't exist locally, but you would be able to do it, especially if you're in the UK, for example. It should be relatively easy to be able to access payment to your to your UK accounts or accounts that are easily set up elsewhere. But it is a problem that many people have realized exists here. I know it's a problem that some people are trying to address already, but at the moment, I'm not immediately sure of any solution that exists 100% to address that issue.
Yeah, that's good. I think her question is very pertinent. But what I can add on to that is recently we have seen a lot of development as far as this mobile wallet is actually coming into the country as well. It is geared towards solving some of these e-commerce activities that we are having, and it's still, a virgin market. People are trying to explore it, but we can look at how best, Gambians, of course, can delve into that market as well to solve some of these issues. But again, a lot of issues need to be thrust out in terms of policies, in terms of infrastructure, to ensure that this financial sector is well protected, to ensure that businesses can ride on smoothly, for safety and security.
Salifu, sorry to just add something small. I think this is also where government plays a huge part, because central banks go a long way in helping an economy go digital. And I'm somebody who used to live with no cash at all in my pocket. You come to Gambia, you immediately realize that doesn't work. You will rarely find a place that accepts it. If you find a place that accepts it, they will have a POS machine and the internet is down. Absolutely. Or when the internet is down, now it might be off. So it starts becoming a serious problem. How do you ensure that in a society that everybody walks around with cash, how do you ensure that individuals go digital? And even though mobile wallets exist, like you said, how does somebody utilize a wallet to be able to accept a payment online? These are all things that I think at the macro level really need to be revisited, and we really need to sit down and figure out that it's a huge hindrance to businesses in this country. But slowly, you're starting to see businesses finding very innovative ways of dealing with this. I know of InnovaRx, which allows people in the diaspora to be able to buy drugs for people in the Gambia. And you will find many businesses that are starting to do that. But like I said, a lot of them are leveraging the fact that they have accounts abroad to be able to set up these payment platforms as well. So look, this is a problem that I think needs to be addressed, 100%.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know it's a marathon discussion. We're basically going to the 1.5 hour mark. But before going to the last points, there is a question for you, Madam Ceesay, as well, which talking about pivoting, which you have mentioned during your deliberations. When do you realize it's time to pivot as a startup? It's a great question.
Absolutely. I would say, so first of all, which of a pivot is the matter of where you point A on your journey trying to get to Z, right? Are you continuing that same straight line, or you are twisting it a little bit, right? That's where that pivot look like. And some of the things that will give it an idea to saying that why you will pivot is when you, and I'm gonna get back to this is why I love discussions, because I can always piggyback to what the previous folks said. Like for instance, Mr. Jobe mentioned, first of all, if someone come in with an idea and saying that I want to open up a store to sell a lot of bags of rice, but they say they don't have a financing, right? Mr. Jobe says, hey, start with 1 bag of rice. That's a pivot right there, right? That's one thing, because you came up with original. So that I just want us to kind of like, put the intuition there, what the basic is. It's not something big, it's just twisting it as you go along, okay? Then when you were coming in through that, so you find out that, okay, you know what? I get to find out that most people really don't even want to, in the area that I live in, don't even buy rice in the bags, they buy it in the cup. So, hey, I probably don't even need to do that. So that may become a permanent one in there. So that's one aspect. But you have to start that. One of the things we call here in the US is the lean startup. Start lean, start small and testing it. And as you get in those feedback into testing that, then, you pivot. The one that's going to be also easier is food. Let's say I have this coffee. I made this coffee so much that I put so much sugar in it, and I give people to try. They're like, but if you could just make this sugar a little bit this and take away sugar, and maybe, instead of doing natural sugar, can you put the other kind of sugar, because people have diabetes? So those kind of feedback as you go along is really what pivot is. So until you go there and give people those ideas or give them samples of whatever that want to look like, you're not going to be able to pivot or persevere. But I would say most of the time people do end up pivoting, because what we think it is and what the way people see it is two different things. It may be a 6 to us, but it's a 9 to the others. Absolutely. So yeah, go there and test it.
Thank you very much, Madam Ceesay. Like I said, we're almost coming to the tail end. But one last interesting question. I know a lot of young people and even old who are in the diaspora are one day thinking of coming back home. But again, you did this at a time that probably a lot of people didn't believe in Africa, talk less of Gambia. Mr. Jobe, there is a question for you. As a young person managing, many young people who often faces distraction in this age of social media, how do you ensure your employees are engaged?
I think that we spend a lot of time talking about how to interact with our customers. And oftentimes in our own company, we refer to our staff even as our internal customers. And I think one of the ways to ensure that your staff are constantly engaged is to just make sure you do exactly that. You talk to them often, find out what their issues are, and really just try and figure out how to, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Claire.
But just to really figure out exactly how do you solve their problems? Because in the environment that we're in, you'll be surprised about how many issues that people are facing in their day-to-day life, issues that they're facing at home. And oftentimes it's especially very difficult for people to even have a livable wage. And we spend a lot of time trying to just ensure that as a business, your employees can come to work and not be worried about the issues at home, can come to work and feel like what they're doing has impact and that they feel valued. Because they're not simply there just to do whatever you ask them to do, but you need to also think about the fact that you're dealing with human beings and how they feel matters a lot. And you need to just do everything that you can in the environment that you're in just to make that workplace a little bit more enjoyable for them. I think millennials, again, like we spoke about this earlier, we care a lot more about satisfaction in our workplace than previous generations. And that's why the modern company that you see today, you go to a company that started by a millennial, it looks more like it's even better than their own home. You have laundry, you have game rooms, and that's something that I've always just tried to figure out. How do you make the workplace something more enjoyable and just ensure that people enjoy what it is that they're doing?
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And because that's where you spend almost 40% of your time or of the day, so it's always interesting to get that. I think we have come to the tail end of the program. It was definitely a well spent time. I know today, like it is like I mentioned before, today is your birthday. You should have actually been spending it maybe relaxing at the beach or somewhere more relaxing. But we are so happy that today you did really, spend your time or take your time to spend it with us. People have definitely learned so much from our panelists. It was definitely an interesting and exciting conversation that we have today. So going to the final thing, I'll just go to you, Mr. Jobe. What would be your final words to the participants and to ourselves? Sorry, it's not clear.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Thank you.
The issues with technology. No, I was just saying that I assume that a lot of people on this call obviously might be interested in starting their own business, might have things that they might want to elaborate on. One thing for sure, I'm somebody who's easily accessible. I mean, you can find me on practically every social media network. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. You type in Hally Jobe, you will be able to find me on any of those platforms. And I'll be more than happy to just have an exchange with people that are on this platform and maybe even learn a lot from you guys as well. Because this call in itself has been very educative, and that was why I was actually, this is the biggest thing I'm actually doing on my birthday. I'm actually excited about it. But that just goes to show you the type of individual that I am. But I just wanted to add a little bit and elaborate a little bit on something that Madam Ceesay was saying earlier. We spent a lot of time on this call talking about ideas. And I think that as much as ideas are very great, execution is far more important. Everybody on this call probably has easily 10 great business ideas. But if you do nothing about those ideas, you can never truly start a business. And like you said, if you can think of any business that has only one player in it, I would be very, very impressed. I mean, just on this call, as you can see, Salifu is working for GNPC. They're in the exact same business that we're in, and in fact, we're competitors. It's not about people, because Madam Ceesay was talking about the fact that you need to go out there and get testing done, and sometimes it's important to share your idea. If you share your idea, and just the fact that what you've explained is enough for somebody to execute it and be able to kill your own business, you're probably in the wrong line of business. You should be confident enough that whatever it is that you're about to get into, that you're also going to be able to do it to the best of your ability. Because like she said, if you have 100 people selling Ebe, but your Ebe is the best, you will naturally succeed. But if you're making Ebe and 100 people are making it, and there's nothing that distinguishes yours from everybody else, yes, your business will suffer. So focus more about execution. Don't waste too much time on trying to find the best idea possible, because trust me, some of the best businesses that exist today, when you really look at the fundamental concept and the idea, it's so simple. And a lot of times it's just about building a business that serves a need. And more importantly, and increasingly now, you will also see businesses that will supply a want of individuals' desires. But where we are in this stage of our development in Gambia specifically, I would say just focus on a business that really addresses the needs of people more so than the wants, because we have a lot of fundamental needs that are missing. Every time I look at a problem in this country, I see a business opportunity. And that's why a lot of people that come from the diaspora and a lot of people that just come to Gambia, period, from other countries, they see this as the land of opportunity. But then you find a lot of Gambians are looking everywhere else for opportunities. In a society where nothing is working properly, there is room for a million business ideas that can thrive. So I just say really just go out there, risk your time and your hard work, especially if you're young, because that's all you're risking, and give it a shot. You never know what can come out of these great ideas and businesses as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jobe, for those wonderful last words. And I think your coming here today justifies the wording that you are so passionate about corporate social responsibility. Because the best thing that you can do on people, or you can give them, is to teach them knowledge, is to give them knowledge. And I think today you have generously shared your knowledge. Thank you very much, and we are happy to have you on board. And we wish you a happy, happy, happy birthday and many, many, many more to come. With a lot of successes in business and all your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam Ceesay, your last words and advice for the young ones, huh? Thank you.
Yes, I would say looking at this call here, Mr. Jobe, I think could relate a whole lot, and because he's operating in the Gambia, he has come from the diaspora. He had made the big sacrifice to coming. I mean, who better to say it? And I really, really agreed 110 or more of what he said, right? There's what we call emerging markets. There's what we call mature markets. If you look at, people are looking at China. China is growing, right? Because we're in the mature economy here in the United States. So Gambia, if you look at it, the same thing is growing. There's opportunity everywhere. So if we complain, especially those of us that come from the diaspora, sometimes like, oh my goodness, we come on vacation. It's annoying. All we do is complain, right? So, and it annoys it. Like, do something. Let's do something about it, right? What can we do about it? And Mr. Jobe said that here, right? All 100 ideas could thrive because we need it. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be taken care of. So I just don't have much to add to what he said. I think I will really, really cement that and say that there's opportunity all over in the Gambia. And sometimes though we can look at it, because when you are part of a system, it's hard to see yourself out of it. It's hard to breathe. Reach out to us. Reach out to, the digital age has made it easier to reach out to people. Most of you guys here, I think Ibrahim and I met through it's through Facebook we met at, right? So, or how you call it? how can I forget LinkedIn? And people who are successful are very generous with their time to give. You know, we may not say we will respond to 100 things all the time, or we may not be the person who's going to help you, but we will try to find who we can try to put you in touch with. But you have to be also be ready, because when people refer you to other people, you got to follow up and follow through. You know, so many a time, sometimes people reach out to you, you're trying to put them with someone and it disappears, right? So just be ready. When you say I need help, be ready, be a hustler, don't take nothing personal, and reach out. The right people, you know, I'm a believer in fate, right? The right people who God has sent to help you is going to show up. So keep persist.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We can thank you guys enough. 1 hour, 40 minutes, well spent. Gambia is endowed with resources. I will attest to that again today. Since the beginning of our programs, all our panelists will come on spot on with their points. And we have references for entrepreneurship. We have the Uncle Idis, we have the Uncle Mohammed Jazz, we have the Uncle Tafs. You know, we have a lot of reference points that we can use as Gambians, and they all made it without even going out of this country. Like you rightly mentioned, it's a virgin market across all. So as young ones, I think my final words would be, let's just keep doing the work and stop the talk. Do the work and stop the talk. That will be my final word. And I'll definitely thank my colleagues, Mr. Ibrahim Sawane and Mr. Musa Sua and Pa Malik, who are on the background to make sure that everything is clear. And I will now hand over to Mr. Sua or Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you very much, participants. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's one of those interesting and educative, you know, sessions that we have promised our followers that we will be doing every month. So this initiative started. It's also I would call it an accelerator as a result of the pandemic. So we thought of coming together, bring finance professionals together. And today we are expanding it to business people, to everyone who probably can give something back to young people in the Gambia. So thank you so much, Salifu, for hosting this. It was educative, it was interactive, and thank you everyone for joining. Our participants, Madam Ceesay, this was educative. We've learned a lot. It shows from the questions the participants have posed. Thank you so much. Mr. Mas, thank you for generously spending your birthday with us and giving back to the community. This is clear manifest to what you have really indicated that you're doing. We are really happy to associate with you all. And you could see, you know, we have colleagues from, you know, Dubai. I think Ibrahim is dialing in from Dubai. We've got guys in Zambia, in Malawi too, Richard, and in Nairobi. And thank you all for joining. This tells you really how interested young Gambians are wherever we are, or young Africans, because some of those connected are not even Gambians. Really, we want to connect and support each other. You know, both Mr. Jobe and Madam Ceesay alluded to the fact that you know, it's how we define our success and how we take our failure. You know, failure is defined, you know, as we define it, but you know, as in the entrepreneurial business or whatever we're doing today, you know, failure is just for us to go back and, you know, reset and get to the next level. So thank you. The video, this has been recorded and it's also been streamed live on Facebook. This will be available on our platforms on YouTube and Facebook and other social media platform. Continue to follow us, and we will continue to provide trainings and vote virtual, and hopefully when you know, the virus is under control, we'll be able to resume our face training. Thank you so much, and have a lovely weekend. And happy birthday once again, Mr. Jobe. Thank you.